Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Journeyman Podcast. We're at episode 10 already. Wow. And I am so excited for this one. You guys chose to dive deep into the power of silence.
Silence.
And, if you're new to the show,
Yeah.
we take your sources and we try to squeeze out every single drop of knowledge
Oh,
from
yeah.
them and give it all back to you.
Love that.
In a way, that's a lot more fun than reading a textbook, right?
Absolutely.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives.
Oh, definitely subscribe.
Okay, so speaking of deep dives,
Right.
you sent in some really fascinating stuff about silence.
Yes.
We have a YouTube video transcript called Show Them No Reaction, Their Power Ends Where Your Silence Begins.
Catchy title.
It is. And also 2 briefing documents, The Power of Silence. A briefing document and A Power of Silence, a guide to self-mastery.
Wow.
So, looks like you're really interested in how silence can be more than just, not making noise.
Right.
But a tool, like a strategic tool.
Totally. And you hit the nail on the head there. All of these sources actually talk about silence as a form of strength.
Oh, interesting.
Especially in a world that just bombards us with noise and demands a reaction from us constantly.
Like it wants to pull us in different directions?
Exactly.
Huh. The YouTube video actually uses some really strong imagery to get that point across.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it talks about silence being like a blade that can cut through illusions and egos.
Ooh, I like that. That's powerful.
It is.
That really flips the script on how we usually think about power. We usually think of power as loud and aggressive. But here it's suggesting that the real power lies in holding back.
Yeah, in restraint.
Exactly. And the idea is that when you don't react, you're not giving them what they want. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing you upset, or flustered, and that actually gives you back control.
It's like they're trying to play a game with
Right.
you. And when you don't play by their rules,
Right.
you're changing the whole game.
You're taking that control. It's a powerful move. And, the briefing documents actually add another layer to this by talking about how when you do react to negativity,
Yeah.
you're basically giving that person power over your feelings.
Oh.
While silence, on the other hand, it allows you to maintain your composure and choose your response carefully. You're not just knee-jerk reacting.
So I can see how it fits into this whole theme of strength and power
Totally.
in a different way. Now,
Yeah.
that brings to mind the lone wolf metaphor in the YouTube video.
The lone wolf.
The lone wolf doesn't run with a path.
Right.
Right. It operates independently and finds strength in being alone.
Absolutely.
Is that what they're getting at with silence?
I think there's definitely a connection there. And, the Guide to Self-Mastery, it talks about the importance of knowing the difference between loneliness and solitude.
Okay.
Loneliness is about wanting that external validation, that need to be around others.
Right.
Solitude is about finding contentment and strength within yourself.
So by embracing silence, you're choosing to spend time with yourself
Yes.
and develop that inner strength. And it's like you're saying, I don't need other people to feel good about myself.
Exactly. And the more comfortable you are with your own company, the less you're going to be swayed by other people's negativity or their attempts to manipulate you.
Yeah, like you're not relying on them for your sense of self-worth.
Exactly. Their words just don't have that power over you anymore. It's liberating.
Okay, I can see that. So we've got the blade metaphor, we've got the lone wolf. The YouTube video also mentions a chess game.
Ah, the chess game.
What's the connection there?
Right. So the video is suggesting that life is like a game of chess. And every time you react,
It's like giving away one of your pieces.
exactly.
But silence is about thinking strategically, not wasting your energy on battles that aren't worth fighting. Carefully choosing your moves.
Yes, it's about strategy, thoughtfulness. It's not about being passive or ignoring what's going on around you.
Right.
It's about being deliberate, intentional.
The briefing documents actually talk about this too, right? They say that silence isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about mastering them.
Yes, that's a really important distinction. It's about being in control of your reactions, not letting them control you.
That's a good point. So how does this idea of silence as a weapon fit into all of this?
Right. Well, the video isn't saying you should use silence to hurt people. It's more about how silence can be a very powerful defense against those who try to manipulate you or bring you down with negativity. By not reacting the way they expect,
Yeah.
you're throwing them off their game. You're taking away their power.
Like, you can't control me with your negativity. I'm going to focus my energy on something else.
Exactly. And that actually leads us to another interesting idea from the video. Indifference as the ultimate revenge.
Ooh, that sounds a little harsh. What does that even mean?
Well, what the video is getting at is that when you get angry or you try to retaliate, you're only giving them more power.
Okay.
But indifference is about recognizing that their negativity doesn't deserve your energy. You're basically saying, you don't have the power to dictate how I feel.
So it's not about not caring at all.
Right.
It's more about choosing to protect yourself from
Exactly.
negativity
Absolutely.
and focusing on what really matters to you.
You got it. And the briefing documents actually reinforce that idea too. They talk about how important it is to recognize your own self-worth and not let other people diminish it with their negativity.
Which can be so hard in today's world, right? Where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, looking for validation.
So true.
So true. And that's where this idea of silence as a tool for self-mastery really comes in.
Absolutely. When you practice silence, you're practicing self-control. You're building a stronger sense of self.
So how do we actually do this? How do we incorporate more silence into our lives? Like, what are some practical steps?
That is a great question, and one that we're going to delve into a little bit later. But first, I think it's important to clear up a potential misunderstanding about silence. The YouTube video really stresses that silence is not about being passive or being unable to respond.
Right, so it's not about being a doormat and letting people just walk all over you.
Exactly. It's about making a conscious choice to respond or not respond in a way that's best for you.
So it's more about being strategic with your silence.
Yes, choosing your battles wisely and responding thoughtfully instead of just reacting without thinking. Precisely. It takes practice, but as you become more comfortable with silence, you'll realize it's a really powerful tool for navigating life's ups and downs and finding that inner peace.
This is already making me think about how I react to things and how I could use silence more effectively.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that it's resonating with you, and we can definitely get into more practical tips later on. But for now, I think the main takeaway is that silence isn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right, it's a tool that you need to use strategically and thoughtfully.
Exactly. And sometimes speaking up is absolutely the right thing to do.
Right. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to unpacking that more in part 2 of this deep dive.
Me too. You provided some seriously thought-provoking sources. I'm enjoying this conversation a lot.
Glad to hear it. And to all of you listening, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Journeyman podcast for more deep dives like this one.
Yes, subscribe. Don't miss out.
All right, so before we were talking about how silence can be like this powerful tool for self-mastery and protecting yourself from negativity, but it sounds like it takes a lot of practice to be comfortable with silence.
Especially in such a loud and chaotic world.
Right, it's like
Yeah,
it's everywhere. So how do we break free from this need to react to everything
right.
and cultivate a more mindful approach to silence?
Well, the Guide to Self-Mastery has an interesting suggestion. Think of your energy like it's money.
Okay.
You wouldn't waste your money on things you don't need, right?
No.
So why waste your energy on things that don't serve you?
So it's not about just shutting off your emotions completely.
No, not at all.
It's more about being mindful about where you direct that energy.
Exactly. Recognizing that not everything deserves a reaction from you. You have the power to choose what you give your energy to and what you just let go.
You know, that reminds me of something my grandmother used to say.
Uh,
She'd say, you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair.
oh, I love that. That's perfect. It really captures the idea that we can't control everything that happens, but we can control how we respond to it.
Exactly.
And that's where silence can be so powerful. It gives you that breathing room
Yeah.
to step back, assess the situation, and choose a response that really aligns with your values.
And speaking of responding, the YouTube video uses this really interesting analogy. It talks about becoming like water.
Oh, yes.
What do they mean by that?
Well, it's a beautiful image, isn't it? The video is saying that water doesn't fight against obstacles, it flows around them,
Right.
adapts to the terrain. And in the same way, we can learn to move through challenges without letting them disrupt our inner peace.
So it's not about being passive. It's about being adaptable and resilient.
Exactly. You're not breaking, you're bending. And sometimes that's the strongest thing you can do, recognizing that you don't have to meet every challenge head on. Sometimes the best approach is to step back, observe, and just let things unfold.
That actually ties in with what the briefing documents say about true strength.
Oh, how so?
They suggest that real strength isn't about reacting with force or anger.
Right.
It's about that self-control to remain calm and centered.
Absolutely. There's a lot of courage in choosing to stay silent when everyone else is shouting.
Yeah.
It shows real self-awareness, a deep sense of self-mastery.
And the Guide to Self-Mastery takes it even further, right?
Does it?
It says that silence can help you connect with your inner voice.
Yes, it's about creating space for stillness so
Hmm.
you can hear your own thoughts and feelings more clearly. It's incredibly valuable for personal growth and making decisions that are true to you.
It's like turning down the volume on all the external noise so you can actually hear what your intuition is trying to tell you.
Exactly. The more you listen to that inner voice, the more confident you become in your own judgment. You don't need that external validation as much.
So we've talked a lot about the benefits for you as an individual, but the YouTube video also hints at something bigger.
Oh, okay.
It mentions how great movements and revolutions often begin in silence.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a fascinating point. It makes me think about how silence can be a breeding ground for creativity. When we're constantly bombarded with information and stimulation, it's hard to find the mental space for deep thinking and originality.
Yeah, it's like that saying, silence is golden.
Right. Sometimes you just need that quiet to let your thoughts percolate and for new ideas to surface.
And it sounds like the same could be said for social change. Before any big shift happens, there's often this quiet period of reflection, planning, organizing. It's in those moments of silence that people can really come together, share ideas, and build momentum.
Yeah, there's power in that collective quiet
So silence can be this catalyst for change,
on both a personal level and a societal level.
creating space for something new to emerge, whether it's a new idea, a new way of being, a new world. Now, I know we've been talking about the philosophical side a lot,
Yeah,
but I'm curious about the practical stuff, too.
sure.
The YouTube video says actions speak louder than words,
Right.
but it also talks about silence as a weapon. How do those two ideas go together?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to the idea of strategic silence.
Hmm.
It's not about withdrawing from the world completely. It's about choosing when to speak, when to act, and making sure your actions really speak for themselves.
So it's like saying, I'm not going to waste my breath trying to convince you, just watch what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that can be the most powerful form of communication. You're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had times where trying to explain myself just goes nowhere.
We all have.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is stop talking and just take action,
Exactly. And remember, being silent doesn't mean you're giving up.
right?
It can be a way of reclaiming your power, directing it towards something more meaningful.
It makes me think of silence as a way to set boundaries and protect your energy.
I love that. That's so insightful. Silence can definitely be a way of communicating your boundaries,
Yeah.
letting people know what you will and won't accept. It's about respecting yourself enough to not engage in things that drain you or compromise what you believe in.
Yeah. Wow, this conversation has really changed how I see silence. It's not just about being quiet. It's about tapping into this inner strength and using it to navigate the world in a more intentional way, a more authentic way.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I think it's important to remember that this is a journey. It's not about reaching some perfect state of silence.
Right.
It's about constantly learning and evolving in how you use silence.
It's about embracing the process and being open to whatever lessons silence has to offer. And speaking of lessons, the YouTube video mentioned something else I wanted to touch on. It says that silence can be contagious.
Contagious.
Yeah. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I think there's definitely something to be said for the power of leading by example. When you meet negativity with silence and composure,
Yeah.
it can inspire others to do the same. It's like you're creating a ripple effect of peace and understanding.
It's like you're showing people a different way of being in the world, one that's based on respect and empathy, thoughtful reflection, rather than just reacting impulsively.
Exactly. And that's a really hopeful message, isn't it?
It is.
Even small acts of silence can make a positive impact, contribute to a more harmonious world.
This has been so enlightening. I have a whole new appreciation for the power of silence now. But there's one big question we haven't addressed yet. When do you have to break the silence? When is it not just a choice, but an obligation to speak up?
That's an excellent question, and it's definitely one we need to explore further.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into that. So we've been on this journey exploring the power of silence, how it can help us grow, protect ourselves from negativity, and even spark change.
Yeah.
But as we touched on before, there's another side to all of this. When does staying silent become, well, not the right thing to do? When is it not just an option, but like an obligation to speak up?
That is the big question, isn't it? And I think the answer really depends on the situation.
Right,
We've seen how powerful silence can be, but it's not a magic bullet.
right.
Sometimes speaking up is crucial.
And the sources we've looked at acknowledge that too. They warn that silence can be mistaken for weakness, or like you just don't care.
Yeah, you have to be careful about how and when you use it. The Guide to Self-Master actually talks about this. It says that silence works best when you back it up with action.
So it's not about staying quiet forever,
No, it's about knowing when to speak up and when to act.
like advance almost.
Exactly, knowing when to hold back and when to step forward. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to speak up, you know?
Yeah.
Use your voice, stand up for what you believe in.
Even that YouTube video, the one that's all about silence, it admits that sometimes actions need words to make your intentions clear,
Right.
your values, your boundaries.
Yeah. There are definitely times when staying silent can be harmful or send the wrong message.
Yeah.
In those moments, speaking up takes real courage.
It's like realizing that sometimes staying quiet makes you complicit in what's happening.
Exactly. And that's where true mastery lies.
Okay?
Knowing when to embrace silence and when to break it.
So how do we develop that kind of awareness? How do we know when to speak up and when to stay silent?
The Guide to Self-Mastery talks about tuning into your inner compass, your values, that sense of right and wrong.
So check in with yourself. What feels right here? What's my gut telling me?
Exactly. And sometimes the gut will tell you to speak up, to challenge injustice, protect yourself or someone else, stand up for a cause you believe in.
And the briefing documents say, even when you do speak up, do it thoughtfully.
Absolutely. Don't just react. Choose your words carefully. Make them powerful.
Speak your truth, but do it with calmness, conviction, and compassion, even when it's hard.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Sometimes the right words can be what breaks the silence,
Yes.
starts a movement, makes a real difference.
Our words, when they come from the heart, can be incredibly powerful.
That's a beautiful thought. This whole conversation has really made me see silence in a new light. It's not just about being quiet. It's about understanding how to communicate more effectively,
Exactly.
knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, and using that knowledge to do good in the world.
To live a more meaningful life, it's about finding that balance between stillness and expression, the wisdom of silence, and the courage to speak up.
And that, I think, is the ultimate mastery.
I agree. It's knowing when to hold your power and when to let it out into the world.
Well, this has been an amazing journey. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the power of silence.
My pleasure.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Journeyman podcast for more deep dives into fascinating topics. And until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep embracing the power of silence.